Inside the mountain cave, the air was calm and quiet. The walls still glowed with soft light from the stone Kale had placed on the flat rock. The group sat in a circle around the fire. Their faces looked tired but calm. They had survived the Valley of Ash. They had passed through the Forest of Death. They had crossed rivers, climbed hills, and walked across burning land. Now they had reached a place made long ago by hands not of this world. Kale stood near the stone. His eyes followed the pictures on the glowing wall. He saw a circle of stars. He saw tall towers of light. He saw people holding hands and planting seeds. The final image showed a human hand holding a flame. It was not an ordinary fire. It was blue and bright, shining with energy. It lit up the sky. The voice spoke once more, soft and strong. You have reached the first place of knowledge. This is where your kind begins to rise. From here, you will grow. From here, you will build. The fire in your hand is not only heat. It is the fire of ideas. Kale turned to the others. This is what the voice has told me. This is where we light the first great flame, not to burn, not to destroy, but to lead. Luma stood beside him. We are ready. The voice guided Kale to the far side of the cave. A wall opened slowly. Inside was a smooth chamber. At the center of the floor was a bowl made of dark stone. It had marks carved around it. Above it, a round opening let sunlight shine down. The voice said, "Place the stone inside." Kale took the glowing stone and lowered it into the bowl. At first, nothing happened. Then a bright flame rose from the center. It was not red. It was not yellow. It was blue and silver. It gave off no smoke. It did not burn the air. It stood tall and quiet, like it was alive. The people gathered around. They watched in silence. The flame moved as if it was dancing slowly. It gave them warmth and light, but also something deeper. It gave them peace. Kale looked into the fire. In its light, he saw not only his own face, but the faces of those who would come after him. He saw children building homes. He saw hands shaping tools. He saw voices singing together under the stars. The voice returned. This is the flame of learning. You must protect it. You must pass it on. Others will follow your path. They will find this cave. They will add their stories. Kale nodded. We will protect it. That night, the group slept near the fire. It never faded. It never grew cold. It was a gift from the ones who came before. A sign that Kale's people had passed the test. In the morning, Kale stood outside the cave and looked at the world. The fire mountain stood behind him. The land below was wide and full of promise. The sky was blue again. The wind carried the smell of earth and new life. Luma joined him. What now? Kale answered, now we teach, now we build. This journey was the first. Others will take it one day, but we must leave a path behind. He returned to the cave and began drawing on the wall. He used charcoal and sharp stone. He drew the river they had followed. He drew the forest and the giant animal Oro. He drew the broken sky and the red fire. He drew the faces of the people who had walked beside him. One by one, the others added their marks. A child drew a bird with wings spread wide. A hunter drew the metal ruins they had seen. Luma drew stars in the sky. These were their memories. Their story. The stone in the bowl began to turn dark. The flame still burned, but the stone itself had no more glow. The voice no longer spoke. It had done its part. It had led them here. Days passed. The group built small shelters near the cave. They found water in a stream that ran behind the mountain. They hunted small animals and gathered roots. The land was kind here. It gave what they needed. Kale became more than a leader. He became a teacher. He showed the children how to make strong tools. He taught the others how to read the stars. He told them how the voice had guided them. He told them to listen not just with ears, but with hearts. Oro, The great beast stayed close to the cave. It lay near the fire most nights. It seemed to watch over the group like a silent guardian. One day, it walked to the top of the mountain. It looked back once, then walked out of sight. Kale watched it go. He smiled. He came to help us. Now he goes to help another. Seasons began to change. Trees grew green again. The sky stayed clear. One morning, a new group of travelers appeared in the valley below. They looked lost and hungry. Kale climbed down to meet them. He gave them food. He brought them to the cave. He showed them the fire. "This is the flame of hope," he said. It was lit by a journey. It must never go out. The new travelers listened. Some wept. Some laughed. They had found what they did not even know they were looking for. That night, Kale stood outside and looked at the stars. They were bright above him. They did not feel far now. He felt as if they were calling him forward. He held a small piece of the dark stone in his hand. It no longer glowed, but he kept it close. It was part of the story, his story, and the story of all who would come after. He whispered, "We were once just survivors. Now we are dreamers, builders, keepers of the first flame." The wind carried his words into the sky. The fire in the cave burned on Dot, and humanity's long path to the stars had begun. The wind became hotter as Kale and his group moved closer to the fire mountain. The red smoke above it rose into the sky like a river of fire. The land around them was dry and full of sharp rocks. The green grass had turned yellow. The trees were smaller and looked weak. Oral walked slower now. The heat made it tired, but it still followed Kale. The group stayed quiet most of the time. Every step forward felt heavy. Kale looked at the stone. It still glowed, but the light was deeper, almost like the last light before night. Kale asked the voice, "Is this the right way?" The voice replied, "Yes, but the last part is the hardest. Not all will reach the end." Kale felt worry in his heart, but he did not show it. He turned to the others and spoke with calm strength. "We are close. There's a safe place near the mountain. We must reach it." Luma stepped beside him. "We believe you, Kale. We have come this far. We cannot stop now." For 2 more days, they walked across the dry land. Water became low. The sun burned their skin. The children cried at night. Kale gave his share of water to them and kept walking. The stone guided him with pictures in his mind. He saw a tall cliff with a cave under it. That cave would be their next home. On the 3rd night, trouble came from within. A man named Brock stood up while they rested. He was strong and loud. From the beginning, he had followed Kale but had never spoken much. Now he shouted, "Kale is leading us to death. The sky fell. The land burns. The water is gone, and we still follow him. Why?" Some looked up. Fear was in their eyes. Brock pointed at Kale. "He hears voices in a rock. He sees dreams. But what if those dreams lie?" Kale stood without anger. "You are free to leave, Brock, but if you take others with you, they may not survive. The path is hard, but the end is near." Brock stepped closer. "You are not a leader. You are a boy with a glowing stone." Luma walked in front of Kale. Her voice was steady. "Then take your path, Brock, but do not stop ours." Brock looked at the others. No one followed him. He waited. Then he turned and walked away into the darkness. The group stayed silent. Kale sat back down near the fire. The stone in his hand grew warm again. The voice spoke. "Leadership is not only about guiding forward. It is about standing still when others try to pull you back." The next morning, the land changed again. They reached the edge of a cliff. Below it was a wide valley of black rock and shining stones. Far across the valley stood the fire mountain, larger than ever. Its smoke covered the sky like a red roof. The only way down was a narrow path between 2 tall rocks. The stone showed Kale the cave he had seen in his vision. It was on the other side of the valley, near the base of the mountain. They climbed down the path one by one. Kale helped the children. Luma carried the water bag. Oro waited until last and followed with slow steps. The black valley was silent. No wind blew, no birds sang. The air smelled like hot iron. The ground was sharp and burned their feet. But they walked without stopping. Halfway across the valley, Kale stopped. The stone became bright again. It showed him a picture of the cave and a strange symbol carved above it. He looked around and saw that same symbol on a rock nearby. They were close. Suddenly, the ground shook. A low sound came from beneath the earth. The children screamed. The group held each other. Oru raised its head and let out a deep cry. Kale looked at the stone. The voice said, "The mountain is waking. You must move fast." They ran. Their legs were weak, but fear gave them speed. The earth shook again. A cloud of red dust rose behind them. Kale saw the cave ahead. The entrance was wide and dark. The symbol from the stone was carved above it. Kale shouted, "There, inside." One by one, they entered the cave. The air inside was cool and still. It smelled of stone and time. The shaking stopped. Inside, the walls were smooth and curved. Strange marks were drawn in lines across them. In the center of the cave, a round stone stood with a flat top. Kale placed his glowing stone on it. The room filled with light. Pictures appeared on the walls. They showed people from the stars. They showed the great animals of old. They showed the sky breaking and fire falling. They showed humans walking, building, learning. The voice came again. "This is the place of beginning. Long ago our hands shaped this cave. We left this message for the ones who survive. You are the first. You are the seed of all that will come." Kale fell to his knees. His eyes were full of tears. Luma held his shoulder. The group sat together and watched the glowing walls. Their tired hearts felt strong again. They had reached the place the stars had shown them. The fire mountain still burned outside, but inside the cave was peace. Kale looked at the stone. It no longer glowed. It had done its work. He stood and spoke to the group. "This is not the end. This is the place where we begin again. This is where we learn. This is where we grow." They spent the night inside the cave. The fire they made gave light and warmth. Oro lay near the wall and slept without fear. In the morning, Kale stepped outside. The mountain stood before him, strong and full of power. He raised his hand toward it. Behind him stood the future of humankind. And their journey was not over yet. Kale and his group walked for many days. The sky had cleared now. The air was fresh again. They followed the river, moving closer to the fire mountain. The mountain stood tall ahead of them. Red smoke still rose from its top. The land around them began to change. Rocks became smooth and shiny. Trees grew in strange shapes. The ground was warm even at night. One morning, they came to a place where the river split into two. Kale stopped and touched the stone. The voice guided him to the left path. He turned to the others and said, "This way. Something waits for us there." The group followed without question. They had learned to trust Kale and the stone. Even the children watched the sky with brave eyes now. Ora, the large animal, walked beside them. Though still weak from the forest, it never left their side. As they climbed a small hill, they saw something strange ahead. Large shapes stood in the distance. They were not trees. They were not rocks. They looked tall and smooth, like cliffs, but their sides shined in the sunlight. Kale felt the stone grow warmer. The voice spoke in his mind. "These are the giants of metal. They came long before you. But they are gone now. Their tools remain." Kale led the group forward. As they came closer, they saw large broken buildings. Some stood on sharp legs. Others had fallen and cracked. The walls were made of silver and black stone. Strange signs were carved into them. Nothing grew around these buildings. The ground was hard and flat. Luma stepped beside Kale. She whispered, "These are not made by hands like ours." Kale nodded. "No, these are from the sky. The stone says they were here before us." They walked carefully between the ruins. The air was quiet. No animals moved. No birds sang. It felt like time had stopped in this place. The stone glowed brighter now. Kale followed the light. It led into a building that had only one wall left standing. A door was open at the base. Inside, the air was cool. Dust covered the ground. Kale saw a round object on the wall. It looked like a window, but it did not open. In the center of the room was a strange shape. It was a tall box with a smooth black face. The stone in Kale's hand became very hot. He held it out, and it floated from his hand toward the black box. Light filled the room. The box opened slowly. Inside was a glowing map. It showed stars and planets. It showed Earth. A soft voice filled the air. This voice was not in Kale's mind. Everyone heard it. It said, "Welcome. You have found the beacon. You are not alone." The group gasped. The children hid behind Luma. Oro stepped back and growled. Kale stood still. His heart pounded. He spoke to the air. "What is this place?" The voice answered, "This was a learning center. We came from another star. We guided many worlds. But we left long ago. Now it is your time." Kale asked, "Why did you leave?" The voice said, "We watched. We waited. But this world belongs to those who can survive it. You have passed the test. You are ready to grow." The light from the box showed more pictures. One showed a city built by humans. Another showed flying ships in the sky. Another showed a great fire lighting the darkness. Luma stepped forward. "Will we become like this?" The voice answered, "Yes, but only if you remember. Build with peace. Learn with care. Use your mind, not only your hands." The box dimmed and became silent. The stone returned to Kale's hand. Its glow was soft again. Kale turned to the others. "This place is not for living, but it was a gift, a message. We are not small. We are the future." They spent the night inside the building. It was warm and dry. The group shared food and told stories. Kale stayed awake and watched the stars through the broken roof. The sky looked closer now, like it was waiting for them. In the morning, they left the ruins. As they walked, the land behind them slowly began to shake. One of the tall metal buildings collapsed and fell into the earth. Dust filled the sky. Kale shouted, "Move quickly." The group ran. The ground cracked. A deep hole opened behind them. The ruins were sinking. The land did not want them to stay. It had given its message. Now it was closing. When they reached safe ground, they looked back. The place of the metal giants was gone. Only dust and broken rock remained. Kale held the stone close. The voice was quiet now, but he knew it had not left. It was watching, waiting. They set up camp near a small stream. Luma looked at Kale. "Do you think others will ever see what we saw?" Kale looked up at the stars. "Yes, one day. But now we carry the memory. We must lead others to the truth." That night, Kale sat beside Aura. The animal rested its head on his lap. Kale closed his eyes and whispered, "We are not just hunters. We are not just survivors. We are something more now." The journey had taken them far, but the road ahead was longer still. The fire mountain waited. And beyond that, the real beginning. Kale and his group moved forward along the river. The trees were fewer now. The land opened into wide green fields with short grass and tall hills. Birds flew across the sky in slow patterns. The wind was cool but not harsh. For the first time in many days, they felt peace. The great animal with the wounded leg walked beside them. Luma had named it Oro. Oro moved slowly but never left their side. The children walked close to it and sometimes touched its thick fur. Kale knew the bond between them, and the forest beast was special. It was more than luck. It was a sign. Kale often looked at the stone. It no longer glowed bright, but it was warm. Each night, he sat with it near the fire. It showed him more images. He saw pictures of stars falling from the sky. He saw fire covering the land. He saw water rising and mountains shaking. These were warnings. On the 6th day after they left the forest, the sky turned strange. It was too quiet. Birds did not fly. The wind stopped. The clouds above moved in a circle, slow and heavy. Luma looked up and felt something cold in her heart. Kale touched the stone. It burned hotter than before. The voice came again, not soft this time. It was firm. Something is falling. The sky will break. You must keep moving. Kale stood and told the group. We cannot stop. Not tonight. We must cross the hills before the sun rises. Some were tired. Some were afraid. But no one said. No, they trusted Kale now. They had seen his dreams lead them to safety before. They packed quickly and walked through the night. At the top of a high hill, they stopped to rest. The land below them was wide and empty. Far in the distance stood the fire mountain. Red smoke rose from its top. It looked angry but silent. Then, a flash lit the sky. It was not lightning. It came from above, like a second sun. It flew fast and left a long white line behind it. The ground shook slightly under their feet. The children cried. Oro raised its head and let out a long, deep call. The stone in Kale's hand turned bright. The voice said, "This is the sky stone. It will strike the earth. You must not be near it." A few heartbeats later, a loud sound filled the air. It was like a mountain breaking in half. The wind rushed toward them and pushed everyone backward. Far away, a red light rose where the flash had ended. Fire climbed into the sky. Smoke followed it like a black wave. Kale stared at the sky. His heart was full of fear. But the voice in the stone did not scream. It spoke clearly. Do not stop. This is the change. The world will not be the same again. They ran down the hill and crossed into the lowlands. Ash began to fall from the sky like snow. The air grew warmer. Oro walked behind them slowly. The beast looked tired. Kale found a cave under a large rock cliff. It was hidden and dry inside. The group entered one by one. They lay close together. Luma helped cover the entrance with leaves and stones to keep the ash out. Kale sat near the opening and held the stone again. He asked in his heart, "What is this fire from the sky?" The voice answered, "It comes from beyond this world. A piece of a dead star. It brings death but also new beginnings." Kale did not understand everything, but he knew they were lucky to be far from where it had fallen. The voice had saved them again. For 2 days, they stayed in the cave. Outside, the sky stayed dark. Ash covered the ground. The sun was hidden. The air smelled like burnt wood. But they had water from the river. They had dried roots to eat. They waited. On the 3rd day, the sky began to clear. The red smoke faded. Light returned slowly. Birds came back. A small deer passed near the cave. Life was returning. Kale stood outside the cave and looked toward the fire mountain. It was closer. Now the journey could continue. He turned to the group. "The danger has passed. We will move again. The stone shows me a place near the fire mountain. A safe place. We must go there." They moved carefully across the land. Some parts were covered in black ash. Trees had fallen. But green plants still grew between rocks. Life was not gone. Kale saw a change in the group. They walked taller. They helped each other more. Even the children carried small packs on their backs. This journey had made them stronger. One night, while they camped near a small lake, Kale had a dream. He stood on a high rock and looked down at a great city. The buildings were tall and shining. People walked with strange clothes. They flew in the sky without wings. And they held stones like his, glowing with light. Then he saw the stars above him form shapes. One looked like a hand, another like a fire, another like a river. The voice spoke again, "You are the first. Others will follow." The story begins. With you. Kale woke with tears in his eyes. He looked at Luma, who slept beside him. He looked at Oro, resting near the water. He looked at the group, quiet and peaceful under the stars. He held the stone and whispered, "I will not fail." The journey was not over. The broken sky was a warning, but also a gift. The earth had changed, and with it, Kale's people had. Changed to Dot, they were no longer just survivors. They were seekers, builders, dreamers. Dot, and their greatest step still waited ahead. The forest was thick and dark. Trees stood tall like walls. Their branches touched the sky and blocked the sun. Cold wind moved between the trunks, and strange animal cries filled the air. Kale stood at the edge with Luma by his side. Behind them, the small group waited. No one spoke. The air smelled of wet wood and danger. Kale took a step forward. The snow here was softer. It made no sound under his feet. He held the glowing stone in his hand. It gave off a soft light and a quiet warmth. It pointed the way, showing images. In his mind, a river lay ahead. The voice said, "Follow the water. It will lead to safety." The group moved slowly through the forest. Trees were too close together. Branches pulled at their clothes. Sharp thorns scratched their arms and legs. Small creatures ran across the ground, watching from the shadows. Kale stopped often to look at the marks on trees and rocks. He was learning the language of the forest. At night, they built small fires. The forest did not like fire. The light pushed the darkness away. The sounds of animals stayed far. Luma shared food and told quiet stories to the children. Kale sat near the fire with the stone in his lap. It showed him tools made from bones and vines. It showed him how to build a better shelter. On the third day in the forest, they came to a place where the trees were black. The ground was dry and cracked. Nothing moved. No sound came from the animals. The sky above this place looked gray. Kale felt fear rise in his chest. The stone glowed weaker here. The voice warned, "This is not a safe path." Still, they moved forward. The group was tired. They had no more meat. The forest had no fruit or clean water. Kale searched for water. Near a rock hill, Luma helped him dig. They found a slow stream under the roots of a fallen tree. It tasted clean. The people drank and smiled for the first time in many days. Suddenly, a loud cry filled the forest. It came from deep in the trees, then another cry followed. The ground shook a little. Birds flew out of the trees. The children screamed. Kale stood up and looked around. The stone became hot in his hand. The voice said, "Run." From between the trees, a large beast appeared. It was tall, with long teeth and dark eyes. Its legs moved fast. It was hunting. It had smelled their fire and food. Kale shouted, "Move!" Behind the rocks, he ran toward the beast and waved his arms. He threw a burning stick. The beast stopped for a moment, surprised by the fire. The others ran. Luma pulled the children with her. The beast roared and charged again. Kale turned and ran between the trees. The beast followed. Branches broke. Snow flew into the air. Kale climbed onto a low tree branch and jumped to another tree. The beast ran below him. Confused, Kale picked up a large rock and threw it. It hit the beast's back. The beast turned toward him again. Just then, a loud whistle came from the side. Luma had returned. She threw another fire stick. The beast growled but stepped back. Together, Kale and Luma moved through the trees and led the beast away from the group. At last the beast gave up and disappeared into the darkness. Kale and Luma returned to the camp. The others were safe but shaken. That night no one slept. They kept the fire burning high. Kale sat close to the stone. The voice spoke again, soft but clear. The forest tests you, but you are stronger now. In the morning, Kale gathered the group. We cannot stay here. This forest holds too much. Death, but there is a way forward. I saw it in my dream. A wide open place waits beyond these trees. The stone has shown it to me. The group trusted him now. They did not question. They packed their things and followed Kale once more. For 2 more days they moved through thick trees. They saw more strange animals. Some had sharp horns, some had wings. But none attacked. Kale felt something had changed. The forest was watching but not hunting now. They reached a high hill and climbed to the top. From there, they could see a wide open space beyond the trees. A long river shined under the sunlight. Smoke rose from a far mountain. Kale pointed toward it. That is where we must go. They moved down the hill. The forest behind them seemed to grow quiet. The black trees were far now. The danger was behind them. But the journey was not over. As they crossed a clear stream, Kale stopped. A large animal stood on the other side. It looked like the one they had met before. Tall, strong, and covered in thick fur. But this one had a deep cut on its leg. It was in pain. Kale stepped forward slowly. The animal did not run. It lowered its head. Kale took out a piece of dry cloth and wrapped the animal's leg. The animal looked at him and made a low sound. Then it turned and walked beside them. Luma smiled. It wants to help us. Kale touched the stone. The voice said, kindness is the first step to true strength. The group followed the river, with the wounded animal walking near. They had food. They had clean water. And now they had hope. That Kale knew the journey was far from over. But they had passed through the forest of death. Together, alive, stronger than before. Ahead the fire mountain waited. And with it, a truth that would change all of them. Kale held the strange glowing stone in his hands. It felt warm, even in the cold snow of the valley. He sat alone by the frozen river while the others stayed in the caves. His people did not understand what he had found. Some were afraid. Some laughed at him. But Kale knew the stone was not from this world. That night, while the fire crackled low, Kale heard a soft sound. It was not the wind. It was not an animal. It was coming from the stone. He held it closer to his ear. The sound became a whisper. It was not in his language, but he could feel the meaning inside his mind. The voice was calm and gentle. It told him, you must leave this place. The earth will break. The cold will grow. You must begin the journey. Kale's heart beat fast. He looked around, but no one else had heard it. He whispered, who are you? The voice did not answer. But new pictures appeared in his mind. He saw a long road across snow and forest. He saw mountains with fire inside them. He saw strange shapes of animals and tools he had never seen before. Then it stopped. The next morning, Kale told Luma, his best friend, what had happened. Luma was quiet for a long time. She trusted Kale. She had always believed he was different. She touched the stone and felt its warmth. She said, if you go, I will go too. Kale nodded. We must tell the others. That evening, the whole tribe gathered around the big fire. The old leader, Grath, sat with his fur coat wrapped around him. Kale stood before them with the stone in his hands. He spoke clearly. This valley is breaking. The ground shakes more. Each day, the snow grows deeper. The animals have gone. We must leave before it is too late. Some people murmured. Some shook their heads. Graff stood up slowly and looked at Kale. You are young. You are brave. But we have lived here for many winters. Where will we go? What will we eat? The land out there is full of danger. Kale held up the stone. This showed me the way. It is not just a rock. It speaks. It shows the path. Now the people gasped. One man shouted, "He is cursed." Another said, "This is madness." Luma stepped forward. "I believe him." I touched the stone. It is not evil. It is a guide. Maybe from the sky, maybe from before us. Graf looked into the fire. He was silent for a long time. Then he said, "If you wish to go, you may go. But I will not lead the tribe into the wild. The valley is still our home." Kale nodded. He did not argue. He turned and walked away from the fire. Luma followed. A few others looked at each other, unsure what to do. In the next 2 days, the ground shook again. A part of the icy wall fell and crushed 2 huts. People began to whisper about Kale's warning. On the 3rd day, 6 more people came to him. They had packed food, tools, and warm clothes. They said, "We will follow you." Kale felt both fear and hope. He had never led anyone before. But the stone whispered again, "Go north. Find the forest. Stay near water. You are not alone." At sunrise, Kale, Luma, and the others began their journey. The sky was gray. Snow fell slowly as they walked. Kale held the stone inside a fur pouch around his neck. It glowed softly, lighting their path. The land beyond the valley was strange and quiet. Trees stood like tall shadows. The wind cried through the branches. Once they saw a pack of large wolves in the distance. But the wolves did not attack. Kale believed the stone was protecting them. At night, they made small fires and slept close together. Luma told stories to keep their spirits strong. Kale listened to the voice of the stone. It taught him new ideas. He saw images in his dreams, how to sharpen stones better, how to build stronger shelters, how to read the stars. One morning, they reached a wide river. The water was frozen, but not deep. Kale tapped it with his stick and slowly led them across. On the other side, they saw tracks, giant animal prints in the snow. They followed the tracks and found a strange creature resting under a rock cliff. It was tall like a tree, with thick fur and calm eyes. The others wanted to kill it for meat, but Kale stopped them. He stepped forward alone and held out his hand. The creature sniffed him. Then it lay down again, not afraid. The stone whispered, "This one is old. It remembers." Kale smiled. He knew now that not all creatures were enemies. Some were friends. That night, the creature stayed near their camp. It watched them, but did not come close. In the days that followed, the forest grew thicker. The group began to trust Kale more. He showed them how to build traps without hurting animals. He showed them how to find sweet water under ice. The voice in the stone became stronger. It no longer felt like a whisper. It felt like a part of him, but danger was still near. One night, a storm hit. The wind tore their shelters. The fire died. Trees fell all around them. Kale and Luma held each other and prayed to the stars. When the storm passed, they counted everyone. One child was missing. Kale ran through the snow, calling his name. He found the child near a tree, hurt but alive. He picked him up and carried him back. The others were quiet. Then someone said, "He saved the boy. He is our leader now." Kale did not speak. He only looked at the stone. The journey had just begun. But he knew one thing now, that they were not just running from death. They were walking toward something greater, something that would change the future of all humans. The sun rose slowly behind the tall mountains. A golden light touched the trees, the rocks, and the small river that flowed through the valley. Birds flew in the sky. The wind moved the grass. Life was quiet, simple, and wild. In a small cave near the edge of the forest, a young man named Kale opened his eyes. He was strong and quick. His dark hair was tied back with a piece of vine. His ears listened to every sound. He had lived in this place since he was a child. His people called this land the safe ground. Kale stepped out of the cave and looked around. The morning was peaceful, but his heart felt heavy. Something was wrong. The air felt warm, too warm. The sky had a strange color, almost red, like fire behind a thin cloud. The animals were quiet. Even the birds stopped singing. He walked to the gathering spot where the others were already standing. Luma, a girl with bright eyes and clever hands, saw him coming. "You saw the sky too," she said. Kale nodded. "Something is coming." Elder Rana, the oldest in the group, raised her hand. Everyone fell silent. "Listen," she said. "The wind speaks. The trees speak. We must listen." The group stood still. A strange sound came from the far distance. It was low and deep. It made the ground feel alive, like it was breathing slowly. Then came another sound, like thunder, but softer and longer. Elder Rana pointed to the mountain. "Look." Smoke rose. From its peak, dark smoke, thick smoke. It moved like a giant snake in the sky. "It is not a storm," she said. "The fire mountain is waking." Fear filled the hearts of the people. No one had ever seen the mountain like this before. Some began to cry, others stood frozen. Kale looked at the elder. "What must we do?" She looked at the children. She looked at the sky. "We must leave," she said. "We must walk to the edge of the world." The group had never left the safe ground. It was the only place they knew. Beyond the forest, the land was strange and wild. But they trusted Elder Rana. Kale stepped forward. "I will lead." Luma stepped beside him. "And I will walk with you." The others nodded. They packed what they could: dried roots, sharp stones, animal skins. The children carried small baskets. The older ones helped the weak. Before leaving, Kale stood at the edge of the cave and placed a stone in the dirt. It was smooth and white. The stone of his father. It marked the place where they once lived. Then they walked. The forest was silent. No birds, no wind. Even the leaves didn't move. Kale walked first. Luma watched the sides. Elder Rana followed behind. Hours passed. Then came the first sign. The ground shook, not hard, but enough to make small rocks fall from trees. The children stopped walking. Kale raised his hand. "Quiet," he said. The shaking stopped. But the air had changed. It smelled like ash. It made their eyes sting. "We keep going," Elder Rana said. As the sun fell, they found a place to rest. It was a small hill with flat stones. Kale made a fire. Luma gave water to the children. That night, Kale could not sleep. He looked up at the stars. They were bright, but the sky was red at the edge. He whispered, "What is happening to our world?" In the morning they walked again. The path was harder now. The trees were fewer. The wind was hot. Suddenly, they heard a loud noise, a cracking sound, like the world itself had broken. They turned and looked back. The mountain was no longer sleeping. Fire rose from its top. A dark cloud followed. The sky turned black. Ash began to fall. "Run!" Kale shouted. They ran through the trees. The ash fell like snow. It made it hard to see, hard to breathe. Kale held a child in his arms. Luma guided the elder. Others held hands and moved as fast as they could. After what felt like hours, they reached a river. The water was fast and cold. On the other side was a stone path that led into the hills. "We cross," Kale said. They crossed one by one. The stones were slippery. The water pulled at their legs. But they all made it. Kale looked back one last time. The safe ground was no longer safe. It was covered in smoke. The mountain still burned. He turned to the group. "This is not the end. This is the start of something new." They walked into the hills. That night, they found a cave. It was small but dry. Kale made a fire. Luma cooked roots. The children slept beside the warm stone. Elder Rana sat near Kale. You were strong today, she said. Kale looked at the fire. I was scared. Good, she said. Fear keeps us sharp. But you moved forward. That is what a leader does. Kale said nothing. Elder Rana added, this journey will be long, but it will teach us. The world is changing, and we must change with it. Kale nodded. The fire cracked. The stars outside watched. And far away, the mountain burned. But inside the cave there was warmth. There was hope. And there was the beginning of something greater than survival.